and I got some waiters thinking that I could go into the water. I could get shots from the middle of the water. And what I did not plan on was the rocks in the water have like an inch of slime on them. So when you step in, those waiters do not grab. So now you're standing in the middle and you go to step on them, and you've got a $3,000-$4,000 unit in your hand and you don't want to drop it. Is that worth it? No, because you can never take a picture again if you broke your neck.
Welcome to Get the Picture podcast. I'm your host, Brad Sigal. I'm really excited for today's episode. I'm going to be talking with someone that I met this summer while we were photographing a series of benefit concerts out in Washington, D.C. together. Neither of us live in D.C., but we were both there. People came from around the country, and it was really great to meet him. And afterwards, we were talking, and he came up with this idea for this show today, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think you'll like it too. So far on the episodes I've done, I've talked to people about things that you can do to get good photos, like what you can do if you want to do fashion photography, or what you can do if you want to be a concert photographer. But today we're going to do kind of the opposite of that. We're going to talk about things not to do to be a better photographer, or at least talk about things that our guest here today and myself have done that hopefully you can learn from our mistakes. So get ready for some photography horror stories that will hopefully help you learn from our experience so you can avoid the same fate. Welcome to Get the Picture, Jared Coffin.
Thanks, Brad. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for setting this all up. I'm humbled to be here, but I'll be even more humble when I'm done talking about all the mistakes that I've done and the embarrassing things. I am by no means an expert at this, but I am pretty good at making mistakes. So please don't take this as advice, as I will have advice that I dealt with and then how I dealt with it or how I'd like to do it better. But I am by no means an expert at all the things that happened. I am just a guy that loves to shoot, and I've been shooting for a while, and that's it.
Well, I think especially in this day and age with social media, people post their one excellent photo, but what you don't see are the 1,000 photos that they took before that one that were not so great. And so this is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, I guess, into what you don't see when people are presenting their airbrushed social media view of their photography. But so why don't we just start a little bit with your background and family history of photography?
My background is probably right after my dad passed away. I went to Europe to visit my sister. Her husband was at Ramstein Air Force Base, and I had gotten a Canon Rebel. It was a beginner DSLR, but it had enough so that it was manual and I could learn things like that. I didn't really learn it as well as I needed to. I didn't learn the science behind it. I wasn't as proficient on looking things up on the internet. Plus, it was 2008, I believe. So I wasn't jumping around learning all that stuff. But after time, what had happened was a friend of mine whose girlfriend was a editor at the local paper asked me to shoot because she knew I had a good camera. You don't know how often I've heard that. Well, you have a good camera, you can do it. So,
right.
Of course, to you and me, a Rebel's not a good camera because we've seen like Hasselblad or whatever. We've seen pretty expensive cameras, at least out in the field or when we go to buy some gear for ourselves. But It was good enough for me to start shooting, and I worked for the local paper for a while. Unbeknownst to me, I mean, I knew about this growing up, but my grandfather was really intricate in the beginnings of color photography. He helped bring Polaroid into the country. He went to Princeton. He was a few years behind Jimmy Stewart, but they ended up being pretty good friends. And he went there I believe in the 30s when Einstein was teaching at Princeton, but he was a business major. He wasn't like Oppenheimer and Einstein were there, but he was a business major. So he probably walked by him when Einstein couldn't find his house. I've heard that was something that Einstein did. But yeah, he never learned from those as far as I knew. But he was friends with Ansel Adams. He knew Bob Guccione, who started Penthouse, which I'm not terribly interested in. But apparently he was quite a businessman in the beginning, Bob Guccione, and then his son, from what I've heard. But my grandfather was not the photographer that we all strive to be. He was more of a business guy where he did expos and journalism. Okay. and that's where he met the guys from Polaroid at an expo. I think maybe in Japan or something. I was never able to talk to him. He died coming up. It'll be 20 years on December 29th. He
Wow.
passed away, and he had forms of dementia from little mini strokes. So towards the end, when I started getting really wanting to know what he did and how everything, he wasn't really there for me to ask and stuff like that. Plus, I was going through a tough time in my life. I've been sober for 13 years. I don't mind plugging that, but I'm by no means a spokesman for it or anything like that. It's just a really important part of my, and I'll talk a little bit about that too when you're shooting. To be there 100% is really important, at least for me. Um, I have some things here that are pretty amazing. I was up in my attic a few years ago, and I found not only a bunch of stuff, but I don't know how the focus is on this, but this is his business card for the World's Fair 1939.
Wow.
This is his press pass right here, which is pretty
Amazing.
cool. I have his press pass from the World's Fair. Um, he was also the main editor for this magazine here called PSA Journal. I was still blown away that he was the editor of this company and went on to do so much. He worked for Nixon, and might be a little interesting to you. He worked in the first Sister Cities Act. He was the main coordinator for Nixon to do the St. Paul, Minneapolis. They were the very first sister cities, and I have pictures of him shaking hands with Nixon. And I think we still have the pen somewhere or something like that. That usually they give those away, but I think we have one pen where they signed on the treaty to do the first Sister Cities Act. So he's a pretty amazing man, very stern, and I remember him sitting me on his lap. He used to play a game called the Big Bad Wolf, and when I got too big and I wasn't so cute anymore, he started telling me about the price of gold when I sit on his lap. So he was a very business oriented man, and he was very
Heck yeah.
extremely successful. Probably one of the most successful people in his class at Princeton. Which I couldn't tell you the year he was there. I didn't do the research on that, but I'm extremely proud to be his grandson in that fact, and that's basically where the family and the stuff like that happens. But I've been shooting concerts for about 10 years now, off and on. But I really got into it about 5 years ago, and I was doing like the paper stuff where they put you on assignment, you just go out and shoot and stuff like that. So I have a pretty extensive thing. I am a professional. I have the ideas of professional photography, but I don't sell my stuff. If you need my
Okay.
stuff or you need my band work, I'd gladly give it to you. The only time I would sell it is if like a major publication wanted to use it as a cover thing, and then we just
Sure.
figure something out. I'm pretty easy going with it. I'm not against people that sell it. It's just I'm also a guitar teacher, so I've got my hands full. And recently, about 6 months ago, I had my right kidney taken out because we found cancer on a test. So I had that done. So I've got a lot of things going on. I have a degree in electronic engineering, so I fix my guitar amps and stuff like that. Not a full
Mhm.
degree; it's just an associate's. But technology blows me away. It still does. I'm not by any means a master at it, but I still love that kind of stuff. And the technology and the cameras today, I've seen them taking them apart. They still blow my mind. $5,000 for a camera is not near what that technology and that kind of thing has gone into the R&D that has gone into cameras today. So uh, that's a little bit about that. I know it's a lot to process right off, but um, that's my experience with that. I also love to do landscape stuff. I like to do that as a good like tater not tater tot like a seesaw with the concert photography, because sometimes I can get overwhelmed with concert photography. Uh, Sometimes I let principles come before personalities, or personalities come before principles, and I will get I have to step back. I have to
Mm.
reground myself. And we'll talk about that a bit, and how to maintain your composure and stuff like that when bad things happen, or bad things happen to you, instead of not you really being a part of them.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing so much information about both your history of photography and your family, and also some of your personal story, which I think is important because nobody approaches photography from a totally objective point of view. Everyone is coming from their life experience, and that inevitably is going to impact what you choose to photograph, or even decisions like you were just talking about, where you're photographing very active and sometimes too much energy, and then you sort of go to the other side with landscapes. That's like reminded me of Sebastião Salgado, who just passed away recently, Brazilian photographer who photographed conflict and war and social struggles for decades, and then just stopped and just did landscapes for like 7 years. Anyway, I appreciate you for sharing all of that, and I think sounds like we can get into a lot of stories. I could follow a lot of threads there, but why don't we start with an issue that you talked about with sensor dust in New Hampshire?
But let's see. Yeah, I was in. I just went. Well, after I got the diagnosis and have my kidney taken out, I decided to splurge a little bit. I had already planned the positive forest show that we did, so that was on my. I think I went to that maybe 2 weeks after I had my kidney taken out, and I was still a
Wow.
little sore and all that stuff. But right after that, I decided to do a trip from all the way up to Maine, and come down back home for a month, and then go all the way down to Florida. So I hit all the states on the East Coast within a month, and
Yeah.
I brought my camera. And my first stop was the White Mountains. I'd been there when I was a kid, but I didn't realize how beautiful that area is. I do Vermont all the time. My dad was from Vermont. Came from a maple syrup farm family, and and going up into the White Mountains, the mountains become much more drastic. You have a lot of
Okay.
granite and stuff like that, where the Green Mountains are very green, or the Adirondacks are very much like that is. The White Mountains are pretty drastic. I would call it like Little Yosemite, kind of, when I was up
Okay.
there. And some of the climbing is unbelievable. You hear about people getting stuck on Mount Washington all the time, uh, and uh, and that's a fascinating. That could be a podcast in itself. I'm sure there are podcasts out there about that.
Yeah.
Um, but I was coming down after my first day there, and I saw this thing called Coffin's Pond. And my family is pretty prevalent in the New England area, so much so that we were the first settlers from the first settlers on Nantucket. But you see coffins all across New England. So I saw Coffin's Pond. I'm like, I'm going to go shoot that. And I got there as the sun was going down, and I noticed little specks in my camera. So I took the lens off and put a different lens on, and they were still there. And then I
Uh-huh.
popped it up. I had just gotten. I shoot with an R6 now, a Canon R6. Um, I am. By the way, I am not necessarily a brand guy. It's like my guitars. I love every guitar that I see. I love the
Yep.
idea of guitar, um,
Yeah.
and every brand has something really cool about it. Um, so I'm not gonna sit there and say that it's particular to me. This is what I know. I hear a lot of photographers saying that. I know the Canon interface, so I shoot with Canon,
Right.
and that's kind of what the way I am too. I started with the Rebel and moved up after I had a point and shoot and stuff like that. Um,
Mhm.
but I'm by no means stuck to that brand. It's just if somebody gave me a Leica or a Hasselblad or even a Sony, I would gladly shoot with that too. That's not an
Sure.
issue for me. Um, but I got
Uh,
I got there, and I started to try and figure out where the dust was, and then I took the lens off, opened up the shutter, and saw that there were a couple water specks on the filter itself. So quickly, I went back to my cabin, and I just made sure that you could use alcohol in a sensor, and it did say that you could, and that's what I had. I had some rubbing alcohol, so I just put it on a Q-tip, and I was able to clean it off. But I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would suggest I have these right here that I've learned to like very much.
yes.
They
Good
fit
tip.
your they fit your sensor perfectly, and you can wipe it. And the stuff that they give you, I didn't really look into what it was, but it dries very quickly, and it leaves very little residue. You can use after you use it on your sensor. You can go after your lenses too, and it does a really good job on your lenses. But man, I was scared because when I had my 7VD, I got some specs on my it wasn't on my lens, it wasn't on my sensor. It was up behind the viewfinder. And
Oh,
I thought that it was a good idea to take a Q-tip swab and some alcohol on that. And then I found out that it's really sensitive plastic, and the alcohol burns into the sensor.
oh,
It doesn't ruin your pictures, but you're going to see lots of weird black like spider webs on your sensor or through your viewfinder from then on, because that's not an active viewfinder on that model. That was just
okay.
it wasn't a mirrorless. It was just a regular. uh, DSLR, and naturally, when you shoot with one of those, what you see is what you're shooting. It doesn't give you any kind of telephoto ability or another screen or anything like that, like the new mirrorless are. So
Hmm.
I ended up. I mean, I could take that whole thing apart, or usually I have things like that service because I don't want to mess it up any further. But I haven't done that. I just set it aside, and it was a good enough reason for me to go get the R6 Mark II,
Hmm.
which I'm pretty happy with. I mean, there's some things that I haven't been through all the settings on that thing. That's another thing. The settings are just can be so much. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how to optimize my ability with the settings. I know how to what things mean, but I don't know if it's any good to use it or if it's not. Sometimes, uh, I would love to meet somebody at Canon or something like that. Maybe they're listening and they wanted to come and give me special tutoring, but for the most part, I love the R6. It makes me happy to shoot with and stuff like that. But that wasn't a nightmare, but that could have been a nightmare. If I had done something wrong or not research, which is very important. It's always good to do a little bit of research and not stick something where it shouldn't be, especially where. Another thing that I do now is I keep my lenses capped. I wasn't good at that when I first started. I keep them
Hmm.
capped, and when I take them off, the lens cap goes on the camera, unless I'm keeping that lens on there.
Hmm.
Another thing that I'm doing research for this that I realize is when you're a professional camera person and you need to get that shot, you're not going to always put on your lens cap. I'm just talking about the lens cap. You're going
Right.
to have that camera ready. And so your lens cap is going to be off, and you better hope that it stays clean. In a rainstorm and stuff like that, you're not always going to have those abilities. So,
It's that
just think,
trade-off, yeah. Either you
yeah,
have to not be
absolutely.
ready or risk damaging or, obscuring your view, yeah.
Well, also the sun visor on it can keep it from getting jammed hard, like on a corner or when you put it behind you or anything like that. That
Right.
that can keep it won't prevent bad things from happening, but it can keep like the corner of a table from getting in there and chipping something or something like that. So I like to put that on even when we don't have a lot of sun or anything like that.
So this story about sensor dust, I think it's a great tip, especially for beginner photographers, because it's not something you think about, but it is something that happens. And back in the day with film cameras, at least I didn't know how to clean the sensor on my film camera. I had to bring it into a shop, and maybe that's still what you have to do. I'm sure you could do it yourself if you're more handy than I am. But with today's mirrorless cameras, the tool that you showed that you can buy them very economically. It's not that expensive, and you can clean the sensor yourself. And you don't have to, right? You can keep shooting with this, and you'll get little spots on every single photo in the same spot. And then you can go into Lightroom or whatever program you're using to edit and clean that up on every single shot. But geez, if you're shooting a wedding and you have 1,000 or 2,000 photos to go through, that's a whole lot of work. And so it's much easier to get the right tool and just clean it off. It is sort of like a Q-tip, but like you said, uh, I don't know, it looks sort of like a squeegee, and like you said, it fits exactly the sensor. But make sure you get the one for the size sensor you have. If you have a full frame sensor or an APS-C sensor, you can buy either one. So excellent tip, and also an excellent tip not to stick things into your camera to other places besides cleaning the sensor without knowing exactly what you're doing, because you could end up needing to buy a new camera. So why don't we move on to your? Why don't you talk about a little bit about your first experience as a portrait photographer, which, as I understand, was also your last.
Well, just one thing is this is about $15. I got it off of let's see there left. So this is about $15 and you get about 7 or 8. Uh they look like little COVID tests. So
Yeah,
so just to give you a heads up of what they are. And I just used the brand that I knew, what is it, K&F or yeah, K&F Concept, which I've used some of their filters before. Boy, this one's a good one, and I am still embarrassed about it, especially when I go to my vet because it's the same vet that I had uh, veterinary, like for my animals, and he's also a neighbor of mine, and he's a really good guy. But years ago, again, a girl that I went to school with saw that I had gotten a camera and said, "Oh, that's a really good camera. Could you come and do our dog Santa show?" And this was back when you would not necessarily like SD cards were a little bit more expensive. It was 2008. So you would try to hook your computer up like a laptop and download it onto the computer. But
Okay.
I was totally amateur and I didn't know my battery wouldn't hold up. So my battery died halfway through the shoot and they had ordered scheduled people to come in for the next 2 hours. And
Oh
my
no.
battery was dead. And I'm sitting there saying, I need a half hour. I need a half hour. And I was trying to charge the battery. Well, in that time, they kind of got tired of waiting the half hour. And one of the vet techs came in with her point and shoot and started taking pictures.
Okay.
Um, she, I don't know what happened. She gave me quite a bit of I wasn't ready for the attitude that I had gotten. I would be today, but uh, what had happened was a week they asked me to come in and show them all the pictures, and I didn't have all the pictures, but they were taken. And I said, "Your vet tech took all these pictures," and she said she doesn't have any pictures. And I sat there. I realized now that I needed to take control of the situation. And it scared me enough that I didn't want to ever, this wasn't a paid job. This was just something that I was doing to learn. I learned real fast that I wasn't going to be doing something that's so stressful uh, for that kind of situation. But I needed to take control of the situation, and I tried to tell her, "Stop taking pictures. You cannot take pictures over me because there's no way we're going to be able to collaborate." And she wasn't really taking. She had no pictures, or she denied what she was doing when it came down to it. Um, I had to continue to use this veterinary clinic, and I think things were a little stressful for a little bit there, but it worked out. I'm still very embarrassed because I never had the pictures. I gave them what I had, and that was it. And it was totally unprofessional on my part, and I was scared. And now I probably wouldn't take on a job like that personally, unless I had. Well, I do have a plenty of things to keep. In fact, I keep I use a battery grip on my Canon. Um,
So that extends the battery life. Yeah.
it does quite a bit, especially for the mirrorless. I hear that some of them can drain batteries pretty fast, but I get about maybe 2.5 hours of not constant photography, but if I turn the camera off, I can get 4 or 5 hours out of two batteries, and then I keep two batteries that I charge up. I usually plug them in before I go out at night. I'll stick them in the bathroom so I don't forget them. You know, like when you brush your teeth, you'll see the blinking lights, and
Yep.
I do hear that there are, and I've watched the videos on it on YouTube. There are some nice consoles that will charge four batteries at once. And if you have a Canon or a Sony, if you use those as housing units, let's say you're super like sports photography and you have one on one side and one on the other, you can charge all the batteries that you have. You just buy these little plugins that go into the side. And
Okay.
and you can charge your flash and everything. You just have to. I think it's around $20 for an insert that goes into the battery that charges it, and then the whole thing is like $120. And then you buy the adaptation that will fit the battery that you need. But I haven't gotten into that yet. I'm okay doing what I need to do. Uh, Luckily, my R6 uses the same battery as my 70D, so I have a surplus of chargers. So
Okay.
I don't worry about that. But I will never ever walk into a situation that I cannot at least have a backup that I can control. Some things you can't control. And I realized that I couldn't control this, but man, was that embarrassing. Uh, the
Mm.
dogs were great. Everybody was great. They gave me coffee, they gave me hot chocolate and everything. But when I had to go in there and said, I don't have these photos that you think I have, um,
Mm.
I still get embarrassed thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important lesson, and the two biggest things that I would take from that, one is one of the first things you said is that if you're the photographer that they have hired, or in this case, even though you're not getting paid, they've contracted you, hired you, to come and do a photo shoot, you are in charge of the situation. People and you get other people, like you talked about this person coming in and point with a point and shoot over your shoulder or however they were doing it. It's very common these days at weddings when you're the photographer, but everyone wants to get their pictures on their phone, and you're trying to get the shot and of them putting the rings on the fingers or kissing or whatever, and guests at the wedding will just step right into your way and with their phones uh, and try get to get their photos. And It's something that is very important to be in charge and make that clear from the beginning with the people you're doing the shoot with. In the case of a wedding, I put that stuff in my wedding contract that they should tell their guests that I'm gonna be doing the photos, and they can, of course, feel free to use their phones, but not to get in my way. And then I think the second thing you talked about, one, there's the being in charge, and two is backups, having extra batteries, extra flashes, extra memory cards, an extra camera. I always bring a backup camera because I have had a camera go out, and I think that's tip number one, maybe for any photographer who's going to be doing anything, even for yourself, but especially if you're doing work for someone else for an event or an occasion.
Yeah, it will save you a lot of embarrassment, especially, I mean, I never claimed to be a professional for them, which I just kind of laughed it off. And of course, this was before I was totally sober. So I could definitely get,
Mm,
afterwards, I was able to forget it pretty fast. But now that I'm not, I do remember it quite a bit. So
yeah,
I probably owe an amends there somewhere along the line. And maybe I'll get to that pretty soon now that I'm publicly admitting it.
right on. And I meant to mention when you first brought up being sober, I just wanted to say congratulations and that I haven't dealt with that personally, but obviously I know people who have gone through that, and it's uh, got to be just a very difficult thing, and that understates it, and a very powerful thing too to be able to live the life that you're living and um, do the things you want to do. And so, congratulations on 13 years sober.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's move on to a story about you working for the paper and having some rewarding parts of that experience, but not always necessarily aligning with your standards.
Yeah, like I said, one of my best friends growing up in high school and stuff, his girlfriend was the editor for the local paper. She would say she liked the fact that I had a brand new camera, and she said my pictures were good, so that was enough to get suck me in. And and I think she had a budget so she could buy about 3 pictures from me, unless it was on assignment, and, she would pull me in after I gave them to her and be like, "Well, I'm gonna give you 30 for this picture, I'll give you 20 for this picture." And then we would do that. I'd usually sell about maybe $120 worth of pictures, a month, or yeah, it would be a monthly paper. And, she would send me on assignments, so she only wanted certain things. One time I did the Boy Scouts at the local airport, they were going up in gliders. That was a really cool shoot.
Cool.
Often it was stuff like, the Peach Festival at the local church, and I'd have to get everybody's name down and make sure that they were in line. Um,
Hmm.
all that stuff was good until I had been there a little bit, and things started getting a little political. I noticed with the paper, things that I didn't necessarily agree with. I can't say that I was right, even looking back, but I was definitely opinionated at the time. Things that I wanted to do more of a the truth in the community when they want to step back and say, "Hey, we don't need this kind of stuff. We're a happy-go-lucky paper. Let's have the police smiling and let's have all that stuff." And I can understand that, especially in a small town. We have a bunch of good people in the town I'm from, so we don't have a lot of issues. We have a lot of uh, equal opportunity, and we've had a lot of like Black Lives Matter marches that I've been a part of, and things like that. Obviously, if I'm wearing a somewhat Fugazi shirt and stuff like that, which we can talk about a little bit more later. But if I'm into that, I'm going to be pro freedom in that sense. So that's just what I feel. But at the risk of going off a little bit with politics, I am not the type of person to unfriend someone because they disagree with me. I am the type of person. I worked at the ambulance for years, and I knew that some of my coworkers did not agree with me, but they would not judge you and save your life accordingly. And that's the way I look at friendship. I'm not going to judge you because you disagree with me. I might not like what we have you have to say, and I might distance myself from that kind of thing. But I just think that there's so many more opportunities. So that's also good as a photographer, I think.
Yeah, just the question I think that's interesting about what you're talking about. One of the interesting questions is when deciding whether to accept a job or an assignment for photography, is it consistent with what your values are? And are you comfortable with that? So
Yes.
that seems like it's an important consideration. When you first get started out with photography and you're hungry and you want to figure out any way you can, anyone who wants you to take pictures, you're going to say yes. But it's important to actually be thoughtful about that so that your photography doesn't end up getting used for something that actually goes against your principles, whatever those principles are.
You nailed it right there for me, and that was one of the things I was going to say is sometimes when you're hungry, you get taken advantage of quite a bit because you are a photographer. Uh, People that aren't photographers don't know the level of work that we do, whether it's Lightroom or sitting there for hours looking at your computer, or you know, I heard uh, someone talking about AI, saying, the difference between me and AI is I'm there. I am in front of that waterfall. I just walked 3 miles to get to that waterfall, and AI took somebody's phone picture and made it like that. So the difference is that we're there, and we that's what people pay for. What had happened with the paper was, I was submitting these $40 pictures, and then I would go on their site to see if I wanted to order a picture, and they were selling them for $300. Uh,
Wow.
and and
So they were profiting off of your pictures without
well,
compensating you
it
properly.
turns out when I drew attention, they said to me that they had never sold a single picture. Not just mine, any of theirs either. But the whole idea that I'm like, "Oh boy, that's quite a markup, $300 for a $45 picture." I had never done a contract with them saying that I owned them, or I think I did a contract saying that they did own them, but I did not release them so that I didn't own them as well. Soon after that, I decided to call it quits, with that. Unfortunately, I with my sobriety, those friends and I are we're not in contact as much as I would like to be. I haven't seen them for years, but at the same time, I learned a valuable lesson there about journalism, about uh, like not stock photography, but photography that you don't necessarily want to do assignments. And I learned a little bit about money too, and that's why I'm so easygoing about stuff. I just I don't like to be ripped off. Like if someone was selling my work, I'd like to be get a percentage of that. But as long as no one's selling it, let's just I'd rather see my stuff out there. I'd much rather see people enjoying and seeing my stuff. I'm not at the point where I need to make a living off of it. So
Mm. And maybe now's a good time to bring back the thing you've mentioned a couple of times. The shirt you're wearing is a reference to the band Fugazi, and to Guy Peixoto, who's one of the members of Fugazi. And they never they had a song called Merchandise, right? Which was basically a critique of how everything is the way the language we use now would be monetized. We monetize everything. And it was just sort of expected that if you're in a band, you're going to put out records and you're going to make shirts and you're going to make buttons and you're going to make hats. And they made a conscious decision to never make shirts and sell merchandise with the name Fugazi on it. And uh, but of course, people wanted those things, so unauthorized people would start making them and selling them and profiting off of them, going directly against the spirit of what Fugazi was doing with not wanting those things out there at all. So my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when Ian or Guy or the members of Fugazi would find out somebody was selling unauthorized versions of shirts for their band, they would sometimes or maybe always tell them, maybe not necessarily tell them to stop, but say demand that any money they make with that be donated to a charity or a cause that Fugazi supported. Is that
yeah,
your understanding of how they often handled that?
they had a shirt that's pretty famous called "This is not a Fugazi T-shirt." I think I bought mine in the mail. I mean, at the mall. It I see them now going for $300-400,
Wow.
which is funny. Yeah, that was the case there. It was a guy in Boston, I believe, and Ian called him up, and he said, "Okay." He said, I will donate it." And as far as I know, that's what happened. I do see knockoffs of that now for $25-30. I think, Brad, I think you were a member of the Fugazi group that I helped start. I think that's how we originally became friends, but then I got to meet you down at the
Yeah.
Positive Force thing. It's called This Is Not a Fugazi Group, and I am the administrator of that. And if you want to know more about this T-shirt or stickers with this on or anything, just join the group, and I will gladly get you in touch with any of that stuff. They help. Fugazi really showed me that it could be done. I love the ethics and stuff like that, and I love the way that they do things. I try to stick by it. I try to do my best at it. But that's why I got into the whole DC and the concert series. That's why I do a lot of things with music. Was influenced by Fugazi, Minor Threat, all those DC bands that we were able to shoot and have a good time. I do remember at one of the shows at Positive Force, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to focus my camera, so I'm shooting Brendan Canny, the drummer from Fugazi, from the side. And then I look to my left, and Ian Mackay is staring at me like, "Why are you shooting Brendan Canny when the band is on the stage?" And I was only trying to focus my camera on
That's
someone's
funny.
silhouette. Yeah. So he gave me the funniest look, and I'm like, "I know exactly what you think. You think I'm shooting a picture of Brendan, just so you know, with a crowd for dramatic. Oh, Brendan's still out there. He's at the show or something. I really wasn't doing that, I still think it's funny how things like that can happen, and that's some of the
Yeah.
good experiences I have from shooting shows. But yeah, Fugazi is a big influence on me. The whole punk scene is a huge influence on me. I really like the ones that are stick to their guns and say what they mean and do what they say. That integrity means a lot to me, and especially with the sobriety thing. Uh, Humility is also very important too. And I don't see a whole lot of bands like Fugazi. I don't think most of us that are fans see anything like that. And often I hear, with the way politics are today, bring back Fugazi. Well, Fugazi told us how to live. We need to bring back Fugazi in our own lives and do that kind of stuff. They have no more to say, as far as I know. I'm sure they do personally, but they told us a whole lot. They gave us a whole lot of ideas and things to ponder and to question and stuff like that. So when people say bring them back, I don't necessarily think that it's a fair trade. Living in the political scene that we have, bringing back Fugazi is not worth that trade. I'd much rather, have things go a little bit easier on people and things like that than having Fugazi back in my life, which I know nothing about. Just because I run the group doesn't mean I know of a reunion. I think I
Yeah,
thought
sure.
I'd bring that up just in case.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook or interested in this Facebook group, this is not a Fugazi group. That's what it's called, right?
This is not a
Um,
Fugazi Appreciation Society.
that's it. Yep, you can join, and Jared will be the one who approves you or not, and you can be part of those discussions. But for me too, I think the do-it-yourself ethics that I learned in that scene also have been a big influence on me and everything I've done in my life as well, including photography. So uh, I think that's important, and also Fugazi existed for a long time. I mean, 1987 to 2002. That's quite a run for a band that was doing everything themselves, booking their own tours, putting out their own records. And it's not like they just went into hibernation. All of them have been doing other musical projects since then, pretty much almost nonstop. So they still have plenty going on if you want to follow them. But uh, there's a lot of other bands. If you get your inspiration from music, boy, there's a lot of music coming out now. A lot of great music, a lot of not so great music. But, there's a lot out there that we can be inspired by. I guess
Well,
is where I'm going with that.
Fugazi has brought so much into my life, not only running this group. I've met people from all around the world, friends in the Netherlands, friends in Scotland. I've met you. I've met Jim Saah, who you might know. He shot the repeater cover. I have a
Yep.
couple of his photographs on my wall here. I know Jim pretty good, and I have a story with him. Antonia, which is Joe Lolly's wife, who's a sweetheart. She's wonderful.
She has a
All
she
these
has a book,
people.
has a photography book coming
uh,
out too soon. So
yeah, yeah, and I have a couple of her books. In fact, I once was able to buy a guitar amp from Don Z and Tara at Inner Ear, and then later, maybe about a year, she came out with a book about Inner Ear Studios, and my amp is sitting right at, I think it's on page 483 or something like that. It's just sitting there, and I love that.
um,
I had no idea it was going to be there, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, all the people that I've met through that whole thing is really inspiring. One thing I did have happen was I remember I had never seen this before. Shooting in Philly um, is a little. Sometimes it's a little aggressive. People are there for a zine or something like that, and they don't necessarily know the bands. And they get up in the face and they hit you with their elbows or they don't move or stuff like that. Other photographers. I was down in DC at a St. Stephen's show, and Jim Saw was up front with his camera. I remember him shooting, and then he looked over at me and he pointed to where he was. He said, "Come over here and shoot where I am." And he invited me over and let me take his space. I learned that technique from him. That's the way I want other photographers to be. If the aggressiveness is for you, that's fine. And I'm sure there's a place for it. I'm sure there's some bands that really like that kind of stuff, or some venues that really like that. But I kind of steer clear. Once I see that kind of behavior, well, I'll go. That's why I like the small churches and those great bands and those quiet shows that have great bands and stuff like that. I like to be able to have it be accessible. And to me, that's accessible. When another photographer says to you, "I got a great shot here. You come on and take your great shot from here."
Yeah.
That's really important. And that's one of the great
To me,
experiences I've had.
yeah, to me, that gets at the principle of no gatekeeping with photography. I'm not interested in learning how to do something and then keeping that a secret so only I can do it, or I get the best spot for taking the pictures and then don't let anyone else get near that spot. I like to do like what you were saying, Jim does too. I get a couple shots from that great spot, and then I like to uh, if there's another photographer, I'll do the exact same thing. Like, hey, do you want to come over here? And then we'll switch spots. And hey, then we both get photos from two angles, and everyone wins.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's when I knew that there was still a place in this field for me. That people still can bring in that DIY, good-hearted humbleness, humility to the photography scene as well.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about? We've been on a little bit of a tangent about music, and I definitely want to talk some more about music. But let's jump back to there's a story that you wanted to tell about your holster. What was it? Your holster bag, how it saved you in Nantucket.
Boy, that's a great one. So, like I said, my family, one of the four founding families of Nantucket. You go up, you see the Coffin name everywhere on Nantucket. As far as I know, we're not on the island right now. There are descendants. We're all kind of related. Some of the family, some of the names that you might know are Benjamin Franklin's mother was a Folger, who was another founding family. She was born on Nantucket, or the Starbucks family. I have aunts and uncles way back that are Starbucks, and then the Macy's family. William H. Macy is a very distant cousin of mine, from what I see, because we're all cousins from Nantucket. That's the way island life was. So the Macy's department store, the first one was on Nantucket, and then the Coffin family. We were kind of the proprietors, and you can read about us in Moby Dick and a lot of Nathaniel Philbrick's books and stuff like that. We were whalers. We were the primary whaling family on the East Coast. It was a tough life and stuff like that, but I decided midway through my vacation to stop on Nantucket, and it was a great day. I got out there, and it was blustery, and it was the wind was blowing. The clouds were perfect, and they were great. I rented a bike, and I went out about 10 miles, maybe about 7 or 8, and I got out on the very tip of one of the beaches, and the sky just opened up on me. They hadn't seen rain there for 2 months, and the one day the sky opened up. I hadn't really dealt with my camera and water. I had bought these bags. This is another thing that I was going to talk about. I bought these bags, so always be careful where you get gear and try to shop around if you can. Sometimes you don't. I went to a local place, and these bags are for your camera, but they were like $15 a piece. And then I went on Amazon and saw them for like $2 or $3. So I always try to shop around to get a good idea. I did not bring the bag with me, nor did I bring my raincoat with me. So I'm out there, and I've got this. Well, my camera's in it right now, but I just bought this holster bag, and this is what I was using. I don't know the brand of it because it doesn't have a name or anything like that, but it just goes there. And I keep my batteries here, of course, and it extends for a longer lens, which I do not have the need for. But I had it over my shoulder, and then it started to rain, and I realized that I had this, and it saved my life because it was puddling. It's a bag that's inside, and it's rubber on the inside of the bag. It wraps around it, and I had a little basket on my bike, and luckily my camera was safe. Even though the R6 is, I wouldn't use the word waterproof, maybe water resistant.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better idea. But I, luckily, I did not get out there. It was not the best day. I got some beautiful pictures early on, but after that, the rain is terrible to shoot, and it is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know too much about getting great shots because every time you raise your camera up, you get some spots on or some raindrops on it, and then you have to wipe it off, and you raise it up again, and the same thing. Uh, Focusing is very tough. Sometimes it'll focus on the water drops and stuff like that. So anybody. Oh, by the way, if you have any tips, please feel free to DM me or friend me on Instagram. It's Jared M Coffin, JaredMCoffin, and I'll gladly get back to you. I love to talk about this stuff. So, but this holster is great, and the one thing that is really fantastic about it, I didn't realize this, but I brought it to the front desk at another place, and it has this wonderful side thing that your belt goes through here, and it goes right onto your belt, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
stable with the neck thing, and that you can just drop your camera in there and keep it safe. This is great for hiking and stuff because it stays really close to you. It doesn't flop around when you go up, as long as you have it through the belt loops. And it's a great thing, great thing. So if you ever see one, I got this used for $50 at a local camera store, and that's another
Nice.
thing that I've dealt with is buying too many camera bags, thinking that they were going to be great, and they were just too huge. I have a one bag that I paid $50. I'm like, this is a great deal, and then I get it, and this is so big. I
So
mean,
for a smaller bag.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or use the big one to go back to a hotel or whatever, and then
Yeah.
move out of that to make sure you have everything. Right? All those little compartments. I never know how to put things in. I'm sure there are tutorials on some bags and stuff like that, but I never know because usually people rip them out, clean out the bag, and then sell them. And now they're just laying in a big pile in the bag, and I have no
Right,
idea how to put them back in.
right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that Nantucket trip was interesting for that day. I came back. A little funny thing was I got on the way back from Nantucket. I got pulled over by a police officer the next day, and I told him my story. I said my family had found in Nantucket, and what I was doing was I was passing on the right in Massachusetts. I had no idea you can't pass on the right. I was going around a slower car. Um, and he said, he was laughing at me. He's like, "Well, you're from Pennsylvania, but who are you?" He's like, "Your family found in Nantucket." So I gave him my license, and he saw the main hotel on Nantucket is my name, Jared Coffin, or one of the main. And he said, "Go get some clams, get the hell out of here." And he handed me back my license. So I went and get some whole belly clams and headed out. I'm a vegetarian for the most part, but I am a pescatarian because of my kidneys. I do eat a little bit of seafood now and then. But it was a good trip, and I told him that he made my day by just having that experience with him. So being a photographer is one thing. He also asked me what I was doing with a big camera and everything on my front seat, which I found pretty interesting and pretty cool to say to him. And he was respectful to me too. So that was a good experience.
Was there a related issue that you wanted to talk about with getting waiters in New Hampshire?
Oh yeah, in New Hampshire, I went to the local um not it wasn't an Army Navy store, but it might have been Cabela's or something like that. And I got some waiters thinking that I could go into the water. I could get shots from the middle of the water. And what I did not plan on was the rocks in the water have like an inch of slime on them. So when you step in, those waiters do not grab. So now you're standing in the middle, and you go to step on a
Sliding.
yeah, and you've got a $3,000 to $4,000 unit in your hand, and you don't want to drop it. And that comes to another thing that I wanted to talk about was your camera should never come first over your life. In New Hampshire, I was up on some cliffs, and I noticed that I was holding my camera for dear life over watching where I was stepping.
Mhm.
What was more important was that I was safe. And I've heard stories of people going out on a branch and then the branch snapping because they wanted to get a picture. Is that
Yeah.
worth it? No, because you can never take a picture again if you broke your neck. You might be able to if you're lucky, but it's still no. So always remember that restraint sometimes is a good idea. Yes, some of the best photographers might push it a little bit, but I would say that most of those best photographers get their best shots not when they're stressed out, hanging off a cliff and stuff like that. Their best shots are probably might look like they're hanging off a cliff, but they've really planned it out and thought it out and taken good shots. That's what makes you great is being able to adapt, but not putting your life at danger, not trying to get in front of a bear, not going to
Yeah.
Yosemite and going in front of a buffalo. Don't do that kind of stuff. That's just insane. And I think the more we have cell phone cameras, so the more we see people doing insane things like that, not knowing. But
Yeah.
hopefully that will save some of us. from making the same mistake. But I realized there in New Hampshire, the waders were not going to be the thing to do. Uh, do not, especially if you get the knee high or the waist high waders, they can fill up with water, and you can go underwater and you can't get out because your pants are full of water. Um, and that's not a good thing either. So I have the waders if I'm like in 2 inches of water or something like that, or it's muddy out or something like that. But I'm not going to go and try to push it with that kind of stuff and risk my gear, risk myself, or it's really hairy when you're on slippery rocks holding a camera with one hand up. In the middle of nowhere too, because a lot of those brooks are in the middle of the nowhere where you get the great shots.
Yeah.
So
I had a similar experience in northern Minnesota. It was either early in the winter or late in the winter. I don't remember which. And there was a river and it was frozen over, but it was early or late enough in the season that it wasn't that thick. The ice was not that thick over the water. And I was trying to get out to get the right angle for the picture I wanted. So I walked sort of slowly out onto the ice, hoping it would hold, and went a little farther, then a little farther, and I went a little too far. And I had a brand new lens at the time, and I started to crash through the ice, and I dropped the camera, and it hit right on the lens. But uh, and I almost fell through, and my dog was with me, and then he almost fell through the ice too. So I had to just sacrifice my camera and keep my dog from drowning into falling into the water under the ice, and then grab my camera after that, and then get myself out of there. But yeah, it's very tempting to just go a little bit further, and you need to really be conscious of the limits of safety, because, like you said, you can go too far and without even realizing it, and then you're in danger.
yeah, one thing I have learned is this strap here, and I think a lot of you pros will know it's Peak Design. They're pricey. I mean, I think this was $70, but man, is this thing soft, and it doesn't make it a little bit easier. And the breakaways on here, they're just simple. They just snap like that, and you can pull it up, and then you can break away right here on the camera. These little things are about maybe for 4 or 5 of them, it's like $7 or $8, and you can
Yeah,
put them on your tripod. You can put them underneath the camera. You can put them anywhere. So much so that often thought maybe I'll put them on my guitar right behind me here. Put it on there
yeah,
and use this as it's so soft and so sleek, and then it gets more aggressive where your shoulder will go. It's got some rubber on it. It's a really neat design, and I hear people talking about other designs and stuff like that, and I'd be glad to use them. But I have no need for it. This is sturdy, and I think this will probably be my camera strap for a while. It's good to buy something like that because I noticed the one that came with the camera really hurt my neck after a while. Even if you're just shooting a small show for a half hour or something like that, but just the nature of holding I don't know what a camera weighs. So what are they, about 3 or 4 pounds?
yeah. I mean, depends on the lens you have on there. Could
Yeah,
be more,
right,
but
right.
at
Yeah.
least that. Yeah, and
That can damage your neck. I mean, again, especially at the end of the day, if you're in a hot venue or something like that, or climbing up a mountain or something like that, you want to be as comfortable as possible, and that will make shooting a lot easier.
and Get the Picture podcast. And Jared, we are not sponsored by Peak Designs, but if you want to sponsor us, get in touch. We love your straps. No, I do use the same ones as well, and they for the comfort. That's one that's really very important, but also the ease of use. I can take it on and off my different cameras easily, and it's a great strap. So I agree with you on all the cameras that you buy new come with the strap. Like, you buy a Sony camera, it has a little strap that's pretty rickety that says Sony on it. You'd think that you buy a couple $1,000 camera, they'd give you a nice strap, so you'd use it, but it's not great. And so I don't use it. I use the Peak Design one, and especially like you said, if you're going to be out for any amount of time, you want something that's not going to be digging into your shoulder, that's going to be comfortable, and that also is going to hold your camera and isn't going to have your camera come detached and crash down to the ground.
Yeah, I heard from another photographer years ago. If you have the original camera strap from the company on your back, other photographers aren't going to look at you as much as they would with some other thing because you didn't do the research to go get something that was better. I thought it was interesting. I can imagine that might be the case with some people. Absolutely, because it is that big of a drastic difference. But
Yeah,
in the scheme of things, if you don't have a strap, use your Canon strap, use your Sony strap. At least
of
have
course.
something. Yeah, It's just a good idea. But
Yeah.
but if I had a choice, and I did not want to pay the $70, I couldn't believe it at the time. But I am sure glad that I paid that. That's another thing. You always wonder why camera stuff, like proprietary stuff, is so expensive. I don't want to deal with the hassle. Let's say like my battery grip. I got a Canon battery grip, and it was almost $200 more than the third party. And
Yeah.
but there's that chance that it loosens up and it doesn't your power doesn't click in. That's not something I want to deal with. At least if it does, it holds tight. Canon guarantees it. I don't want to have to deal with returning it if it breaks, stuff like that, to a third party company. I'm not, by all means, I wish things were cheaper all the time, and more manageable. But there is something to be said about proprietary units. Like, you use this with this and this and this, and they will all work together. It will ease your grievances. Let me say that. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, and obviously that's different people make different decisions on on things like that. If you just simply don't have enough money, obviously that you buy what you can afford and upgrade when you can. And but there is certainly something to be said for example, with a Sony camera. I generally buy the Tamron lenses because they're so much cheaper than the Sony proprietary lenses. But the Sony G Master lenses are incredible lenses, and as soon as I save up enough money, I upgrade to a Sony one if I can, because it really is made to work with that camera at
yeah.
the maximum capacity. And I've just been reading and watching about there's a new version. I use a Sony A7 III camera. They just I'm 2 generations behind now, and now they just released the A7 V, and which can do like, uh, I don't know, when you press the button, it can do 30, 60, I don't know, some insane amount of frames per second that it can shoot. Only if you're using a Sony lens. If you use a third-party lens, it throttles it to, like, 10 frames per second. Oh my god, only 10 frames per second, how will I ever live? But, that's fine for me. If I were shooting a professional, uh, baseball game or something, or hockey game, maybe that would make a difference. Uh, anyway, those are the things you get when you use the proprietary systems. They work to the maximum abilities of the equipment that you have.
I'm not into sports photography as much because I hear that it's probably triple or quadruple the value as just regular shooting, landscaping when you get into the thing. But some of the prices I hear for some of those sports lenses and stuff like that, they make me think of going and getting a car instead. They're pretty beautiful. Like you said, it's an amazing amount of technology, but
Yeah.
there's money in sports photography too. I've always believed that there's good money in that if you're one of the people that get their foot in the door there. That's an interesting field.
Mm. Yeah, so let's get back to music. We already talked some about it, but both you and I are very passionate about doing concert photography and music photography. And why not go back into that a little bit? I know you have some experiences you wanted to talk about with music photography. Um, why don't we jump into that? Why don't you talk about communicating with venues when you want to do photos at a show?
Boy, venues aren't always the most. They're certainly not going to cater to most photographers. I mean, maybe if you have a really good name or you have a website that does a lot of business. But my experience, because I'm not somebody like that, is uh, if you can find a venue that allows you to bring your camera in without having to go through all the channels, that's usually the easiest way. I've tried to go through channels and they ask me if I'm with a publication. Of course, I could use the Fugazi group as a publication, but I don't know that they would do it. Plus, it wouldn't be being honest because I'm not going to post a quicksand shot unless they're doing a Fugazi song. That's one thing that we do with that group is we stick to what we're talking about. Um, and that's fine for any other group if that's what you're about. But we just decided that when people sign up for something, that's what they should get. They shouldn't be getting a bunch of other stuff. Um, so when I go to venues, I don't see a lot of consistency. Some of the ones in Philadelphia today they'll let you in. Tomorrow they come up to you like they've never seen you and stuff like that. Um, I maintain that early on I would get mad. It would hurt my ego, and I wouldn't even realize it. Sometimes when you keep yourself unchecked and you don't pay attention to what you're feeling, your feelings come across first and you get angry. Um, I would maintain that you need to stay vigilant about not getting angry and keeping a cool head if you ever want to do that kind of thing again with them. Apologize, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to be able to do that, and I totally understand the frustration when you go to raise your camera and you get a tap on the shoulder saying, "Oh, you need a wristband for that camera," and I sit there and I'm wondering, well, three guys checked me on the way in. They looked in my bag, they saw the camera. Nobody checked me for a wristband or told me about it,
Yeah.
stuff like that, and that's happened quite a bit. That's why I like to go to the shows that I do. It keeps it pretty good. Um, Another part with the ego is sometimes I see techniques from the guys that do have the wristbands, and I'm like, how are you shooting like that? They've got it waving around or up like this, and they're not. I've always been told, you use your eye to stabilize the camera, stuff like that. You can't have a tripod at most venues because it
Right.
takes up too much space. Someone could skewer themselves. Sometimes I have to set it aside and say that person has their pass. It doesn't matter how good they are. They're learning stuff like that. Just try and make friends with them. Try to get as much information about it next time. I don't have a whole lot of good luck with emails, emailing the venue and getting an okay pass. Usually it takes me 10 or 15 times. Bands are the same way. Um,
Mm.
never give your I always give my stuff to the band. I try to give my stuff to the band. Lately, I've been slacking. Like the past year or so, I've been slacking on getting my stuff out there because of my health issues and stuff like that. My brain has been preoccupied, and I'm not spending a whole lot of
Mm.
time on Lightroom in front of the computer. But the bands do not understand what we do as photographers unless they're photographers themselves. So if you expect the band to get your photography and then post it on Facebook the next day, you've got to probably be either a real close friend, um, or be there. They know you're coming and everything like that, and they say that they're going to do that because I don't have a whole lot of experience. When I give the band the stuff, I never see those photos used again. I
Mm.
just put them in my archive and stuff like that. That's just my experience. I'm sure other photographers get real lucky with that stuff, especially the more well known you get. But don't ever expect the band to do anything for you. Uh, your expectations of people and stuff like that just end up you getting hurt. I definitely suggest that kind of stuff. Try to stay as humble as possible and have a good time. I have walked out of venues sometimes feeling like it was a horrible show just because I didn't get shots. I realize now that maybe I should have set the camera down, taken it up to the front desk, asked them to put it away, and gone and enjoyed the show. Sometimes it's like guitar. Sometimes when you plug in a guitar, it just doesn't sound right. You're not going to play the way you want that day. It just happens that way. Sometimes my shots just aren't right. Sometimes I'm just not feeling it, and
Mm.
I'm not going to feel better the more shots I take. That's for sure. Sometimes things go right, but sometimes things go worse. And so just to keep a level head, and that's where staying sober helps too. Going into a venue is so easy to drink, but you don't want beer on your camera. Sometimes you have people that are pretty ruthless at shows. I was at a show,
Yeah.
I believe the band was, I went to see Shades Apart and the very first Calling Hours show. What had happened during the show, during calling hours, this guy who was in a band, he'd been known to get too messed up, and he started going right after the back of my head with punches. He started like
Wow.
he would swing and he would miss, and when you're shooting, you're not looking behind you, and
Right.
then 2 minutes later, he would come right back from across the room, coming right at the back of my head with when I'd hold the camera up. Garrett stopped the show, grabbed him by the back of the shirt, gave him his money back, just like Fugazi used to do, and said, "See you later." And he knew him too, but he knew that it wasn't right. So we don't always have that opportunity to have bands take care of us like that. But at that show, that did happen, and I just felt it was just a very awkward situation, and I learned very fast. Sometimes when people are moshing and stuff like that, watch out from the back of your head and know that things can happen. It's hard not to take that personally sometimes. It really is, especially when you get clocked. But that kind of stuff can happen. I'm all for just dancing, no moshing, but I think you guys that know me understand that at this point. But yeah, that's some of the things that can happen at shows. And I just say you don't want to burn your bridges. You never want to burn your bridges. There's enough of that going on today that with why do that when you love to do photography? You don't want to end up becoming a bitter old man. I have a hard time not doing that anyhow. So So,
Well, and it comes back to what we were talking about before, is that what's the point of going to take photos at a show? Yes, you're going to get good photos if possible, get the best photos you can, but the essence of it is you're having that experience. And if you get the photos that you can share that experience with others, that's great. That's extra. But be there for the experience. Be sort of tuned in to the experience. And then even if you don't get great photos, you still had a great experience. No one
well,
can take that away from you.
I also had a couple of other ideas that had happened at shows. I've seen flashes. Some bands don't like them. I suggest if you know the band, ask them first. If you don't
Yeah.
know the band, don't use a flash. Maybe if you see somebody else using a flash, talk to them about it and see what they say. Remember, if you're using a flash and the guy across the hall is using a flash too, his flash can mess with your photography too. So always remember that if you're using a flash, you're messing with the other photographers too. So try to time it if you can. But it's just something to know. You know, if you're using a constant flash all the time, you're messing with a lot of people in that room, uh, and sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes the band pay you for that kind of stuff, and that's cool too. I've seen I don't use it a whole lot, so I don't know, but the focal the red light that shoots and it helps you focus. I've seen that
Yeah.
hit a band before and they stop the show and they embarrass the photographer. I always get a piece of black tape and put it over because sometimes my camera will reset and that you can turn it off on the Canon, but if you put it in the right setting, it can turn back on. So I get a piece of black tape and turn it over. Uh, what is the name of that feature?
Infrared.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like I
The
have a
focal assist. Yeah.
Like
Uh,
I also have a remote trigger for my camera that is not when you plug in, it like connects to that, you point it at that and it'll fire the trigger so that you don't
right,
shake the
right, yeah.
camera. Um, so yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But you don't want to be embarrassed, and like I said, a lot of bands don't know how embarrassing that you're a photographer because you don't want to be up on that stage, and then when they stop the show and say, "Hey, you man, stop it!" I know the guy had no idea that what was going on, and I tried to hand him a piece of black tape, but he had figured it out by that time. Uh, it's always good to just keep black tape on there in case your camera resets itself and starts doing it. Just things to watch out for. I'm not saying all bands will be like that. Most bands are pretty cool usually, but depending on the style of music that you're doing, if you're doing pop music, I could assume that you deal with some divas and stuff like that. You could. I've heard stories about certain people not allowing you to shoot certain sides of their face and stuff like that. So I steer clear of that kind of stuff because that kind of stuff kind of intimidates me quite a bit. When I'm
Mm,
told how to shoot and where to shoot, I don't see much of an art in that. That's more like journalism or archiving, and
mm.
I, it doesn't sound fun to me. But as a wedding photographer and stuff, I'm sure you get that kind of stuff a lot.
You can, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, you don't want to put yourself in the middle of the ceremony, so yeah, you have to sort of stay within certain areas. But at concerts, yeah, so there's, I guess, different levels of restrictions from the club that you might encounter where they just don't allow you to shoot at all with anything other than a phone. So no detachable lens cameras. That's very common without a press pass. And then at least at some here where I've gotten a press pass, then they only allow you to shoot with no flash and only during the first three songs. That's also common, is a first three songs restriction. And a lot of the amazing rock and roll and punk photos throughout history would never have been taken if you can only take photos during the first three songs. Like the cover, Jim Shaw's photo on the cover of the Repeater album. Pretty sure that was towards the end of that
I
Fugazi
would
show.
think, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
would think
think
it
that's
was.
I interviewed him about it actually, and I think he said it was towards the end, yeah, or maybe the very last song. Yeah, I think it's Glue Man. I think the
I
last
was gonna
song.
say it looks like good. It looks like a glue man shot. You know, that seems to be the
Yeah,
song that Fugazi's famous for getting pictures of.
or like
Um,
the famous photo on the cover of the Clash album with them smashing the bass. I don't know when during the show that was, but probably not during the. You're not going to smash the bass during the first three songs, you know. So, but it is what it is. Those are the restrictions. But then there's the question you're talking about of bands not appreciating photographers or not wanting people to be shooting photos, whether it's with flash or at all. And so I like what you said before of, I know you can attempt to message bands on whether it's Instagram or an email, you may not hear back, but at least letting them know that you are planning to do photos, a good thing to do. And I have been at a show where the singer from the stage called out the photographers. That is a reality at a lot of the more DIY shows where they do allow detachable lens cameras in. Sometimes you do get, like this was the case in DC at the shows we were at, where you get the whole front row and the sides. It's like 10, 20 photographers lined up, and it can be a lot if you're in a band, I imagine. And uh, so sometimes bands don't like it and may make a thoughtless comment about, oh, damn photographers. But you just got to kind of roll with it. And if they don't want you to take pictures, then don't take pictures. It's just like if I'm doing street photography, if someone says, hey, don't take my picture, even if I wasn't aiming the camera at them, I'm like, okay, cool. Or if I did get them a picture, I'll delete it. I'm not here to make people mad. I'm here to try and get good photos. Respect is basically what that comes down to in my eyes.
Absolutely. I'm reminded I was down at Fest. I didn't shoot it. Fest is a big show in Gainesville, and there's a lot of bands down there. I
Yeah.
looked at the prerequisites for shooting it, and I decided that I didn't want to because now, don't get me wrong, Fest is an incredible operation, and I had a blast. The venues are great, the bands are great. Most people are accessible during that whole thing. Some of the bigger bands, if you're lucky to see them, it's not that they're keeping you away. It's just that there's so many people around. Um, the photographers are assigned bands, so every band gets some photographers, uh, and that means that photographers don't necessarily want to be shooting the bands that they see. They don't know them. It's not that they don't like them. So the other thing is that to keep your spot to be continue going to Fest is um, you have to go to these venues. So the photographers are a little aggressive. They get up in the stage and they don't realize that it's the fans that are keeping this whole fest thing going. It's not the photographers. Um, so just some of those things. I don't know what they could do different because there's so many. It's like 300 bands there in 3 days, and I
Yeah.
had nothing but fun. It was a lot of fun. I didn't see Les and Jake there this time, but they're from there, I believe. I saw them up here. I'm a small town outside of Philadelphia called Kutztown. I saw them in Reading, Pennsylvania. Well, you guys might know it from Reading Railroad on Monopoly. I worked at Reading
Yep.
Hospital too, but yeah, I saw them at a venue, and I was able to get a press pass, um, which was cool. Les and Jake did it for me personally, and they were really cool about it. I get to the show, and I'm like, huh. About 2 weeks before, I'm like, I don't have a really strong memory card. Let me go and get a big one, uh, like a I don't think it was 32 gigs. It was like 128 gigs. And so I went on Amazon and found one, bought it, and got it, put it in my camera, and went to the show. If you know Les and Jake usually has like 6 or 7 opening bands because it's ska music. So ska tries to fit in as much as you possibly can. I got the first 4 or 5 bands, great pictures, everything. And then Les and Jake goes on, and I get this message on my camera full camera full, every single picture I went to take. I had bought a counterfeit card from Amazon. And
Oh no.
afterwards, I found out that it's a big thing. I emailed the guy. He said he would give me half my money back because I bought 2 cards. I'm like, but they're both counterfeit, aren't they? And he said, I'll give you half your money back. So I took it. But I did not get a single shot. I think I got the set list from Les and Jake. And Les and Jake are terribly photogenic. So I was getting great pictures. They would flash up on my screen, but they would just disappear then. So I
Same.
knew
Yep.
I was getting some good pictures. They had the horns right in your face and stuff like that, and they were smiling. They were interacting with me, and that show was like three songs, and then step off and stuff like that. But I learned my lesson at that. I contacted Les and Jake. I told them, this is what happened. They said, "Man, that sucks." And then I tried to contact them when they came through again, and they didn't answer me. So it, I got shut down, but to be able to shoot them again, and I had that press pass to remind me of that, but that's one of my big warnings. Make sure you're getting a well-known SD card. Make sure you test it out. Make sure you format. Well, of course, you're going to format it to use it, but uh, they do exist, and look at where they come from too.
Mhm.
I would definitely suggest just going to Best Buy. I need to get high-speed SD cards now, so I just go to B&H, and I know that they're going to be good at B&H, so I just do that. Plus, I have the credit card, so I don't pay tax on anything from B&H, which is a good deal. But yeah, that was a nightmare in itself.
That's an important lesson that you learned the hard way. So everyone listening, learn that lesson without having to repeat it. Make sure you're buying from a reputable source. It doesn't have to be from Amazon. If you don't like shopping on Amazon, you can do, like Jared said, B&H. You can do Best Buy. You can do local stores that are reputable. Um, yeah, that's important. So I'm looking at the time. I noticed we've been going for a while. I want to respect your time, and I have some things I need to do. So let's hit a couple more topics and then wind it down. How does that sound? Let's talk about an app that you had mentioned before we got on the air, Photo Pills. Tell me
Oh
about
boy.
Photo Pills and what you use that for.
Well, I don't know what I use it for because you pretty much need a degree to use this app. There's a lot of physics involved, and it's a beautiful app. It's a one-time fee, so you're not subscribing to it. It's a really great app. If you do sun stuff, if you like, I can look up the sun in 10 years on a lighthouse. No matter what day it is, I can see when the sun's going to come up, when it's going to hit it, when I'm going to get blue hour, when I'm going to get golden hour. It will do Milky Way, all that stuff. It will tell you where you need to be standing when you take those pictures. It's also got a lot of things I don't know, but I did take a short class on it, and I learned a lot about it. There's a lot of little intricate things. So I definitely suggest grabbing photo pills and just learn. If you don't use it today and you become a serious photographer, you're going to use it tomorrow. You're
Yeah.
definitely, it'll teach you so much that you don't already know.
And if
Um,
you've ever seen, I know for in Minneapolis, there'll be people who will take pictures of the skyline of the city with the moon positioned perfectly when you have a big moon, and you're like, how did they get that? How did they know that was going to be like that? Well, because there's an app called Photo Pills, and you can see when where the moon is going to be in the sky, what time it will be there, when the conditions will be right, and you position yourself exactly right to get that shot. So that's how you do it. Nobody's born knowing all of those things, but this app is there to help you. So I agree. It's been great for me as well.
if there's one app that does not exploit anything, that is there for the photographer, it's there to use. I would say it's photo pills. It's not about making a ton of cash or anything like that. It's just a really it's a really good app that as far as I've seen, if there's a mistake to it, it's been me. And that's
Yeah,
easy to do too. But if
of
there's
course.
some kind of weird mistake, it's definitely just been me missing an input or something like that. And it has all sorts of calculators, stuff like that that you can use too. Um, I
That,
love that app. When I remember to look it up, you don't want to just go to a place where you're shooting and break out photo pills and have it work. You want to go 2 or 3 days before you shoot there, and then and figure out what you want and how to use it.
yeah,
It's not something that you can just get out and have it work. It's going to be something that's going to be extensive, and you need to study a little bit.
yeah, I agree. Well, and that's pretty good transition to the thing that I was hoping to end on, which is uh, we've talked a lot this whole conversation about things that haven't worked when you're trying to do photos, things that didn't work out, things that ended in disaster of one sort or another, or at least a mishap, not necessarily a disaster. Um, but would you say it's still worth trying those things? That's how we learn, right? Is uh, there's no way to know until you try.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to do a podcast if I didn't have all these things go wrong because I don't have a whole lot of expect. Well, I know how to shoot myself, but I don't always articulate it in a great way. But yeah, I wouldn't trade any of these things. Um, it'd be interesting to see those less than Jake pictures. It'd be interesting to see those dog pictures. Um, it would just but I think the stories are so much better. You know, as long as I have some good pictures in there in between, um, which I do. I have some pictures that I love it when you have a picture that you didn't even realize you took and you get home and you look on the big screen and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's great."
Yeah,
Uh, and then adversely, you can be like, "Oh, that picture was so great. I can't wait to get home and see it." And then you see that it's just a little bit out of focus or something like that, or
yeah,
stuff like that. That's much more common. But with the technology today, um, uh, I think that it can be worked around. One thing I've noticed was like ISO. Always remember keep your ISO down. it's so easy to turn it up because my camera will make it look beautiful when it's up. Then you look at the picture and it's all sorts of grain in it, and you have to clean it up somehow. Um, I learned that the hard way because the preview on my camera makes it look really beautiful, but then you go back and you preview it when it's in the camera roll, and it does not look nearly as well.
Yeah.
So ISO is a tricky thing that I'm going to deal with, and sometimes even at shows I can't get the lighting up. It's just too dark without a flash.
And that's an important point with ISO. Y If you're shooting in auto, then, the camera's gonna set the ISO for you, there's nothing you can do. If you're shooting in manual, what I'll do in a situation where the light is constantly changing, like a lot of times concerts where there's strobe lights and flashing lights and different colors, and uh, it's hard to just pick an ISO and stick with it. I'll put the camera in manual, but ISO on auto and let the camera set the ISO based on whether the lights are on or off or flashing. But you, a helpful tip for that though, you can do that, but then you, at least on my Sony camera, you can force it to stay within a range. So it won't blast the ISO all the way up to the maximum that the camera can do, which is going
Right.
to give you a noisy photo. You can say, keep the ISO on auto, but don't let it go above 6400 or whatever it is so that you can at least have a file you can work with afterwards.
Yeah,
So
like a
that's
governor. You can put a governor on it and keep it down. That's a good idea. Yeah.
that's something that I've done sometimes, and I found it helpful. Well, I think why don't we end with just talking about where people can find you if they want to reach out to you to talk to you more or see maybe some of your photography.
You can join this is not a Fugazi group if you just want to hang out and you're a big fan of them. That's a great thing. But Jared M. Coffin on Instagram is my Instagram. I don't do a whole lot of, you'll see a lot of my dog pictures. I do that a lot because I've calmed down a little bit with getting, I had probably 5,000 pictures I need to get through.
Mm.
I recently was looking at these things called, is it a tour box? Have you ever heard of a tour box?
I don't think so.
It's like a small handheld controller, so you can adjust the sharpening and everything. It's like a mouse, but it's a block,
Oh
like a
yeah,
PlayStation controller. And I've been thinking about getting that to speed up my Photoshop use because
yeah.
I'm not proficient in that. I wanted to take a class in Photoshop at the local college. We have a college in Kutztown, and unfortunately, since I'd be matriculating, they didn't want to have me use up a desk time or be in the computer lab because that's
Sure.
safe for students that are doing film and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I have to get to the right person to be able to do that. I'm not real good at doing the logistics of photo saving, like putting things in the right folder, editing them and putting them in the right folder, then having them easily accessible. I kind of get scatterbrained with that. Although I'm getting better, I just have to make sure that I mark everything down. Um, so I do have some of my photography up. I've done a few shows, local shows and stuff like that. Uh, that's basically the best way. Or you can friend me on Facebook. I'll always be your friend. It's okay. And I'm glad to DM, even though I might not know the answer. I'll try and find it for you. If you're a beginner or something like that, if you're an expert, please give me the answer.
There you go.
Yeah, because I'm always looking for more information. There's always something to be learned in this field. It's such a technical field that people don't realize. Uh,
Yeah,
it's definitely a fun field, and there's so much out there, and it's an ever evolving field too. I'd like to see
absolutely.
like jump ahead 50 years and see what they're going to be using. Hopefully, they're not those Ray-Ban glasses.
Yeah, who knows? You're right though, that, first time I had a camera in my hand was, when I was a little kid in the '70s. There's pictures of me holding a little 110 millimeter camera and then, 35 millimeter film cameras, then point and shoots and phones and mirrorless. It's always evolving and there's always more to learn. I agree with that 100%, and I'm doing this podcast so I can teach some of the things I've learned, but also learn some of the things that I don't know as well, because there's a ton I don't know. But the things I do know and the things that people like you that I have on know, I'm hoping will be useful for people. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. And thank you so much if you've made it this far for listening to this episode of Get the Picture podcast. If you've made it this far, please give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, write a review. Those things help people find it. Follow and Get the Picture on all the podcast platforms, all the social media platforms. And consider, if you have a few bucks extra a month, supporting Get the Picture on Patreon so we can get better equipment, come out more frequently, and really help people to get the picture. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add, Brad, is this here. It's a filter case. It's got a little
Okay.
clip on it. I have lost $200 worth of filters because I had it in a Vivitar, like snapped together velvet Velcro case. They fell right out of my pants pocket. You don't want to use your filters. When I was in New Hampshire again, I had put my camera into my sidearm. You know what I mean? The carry-on. The filters fell off from the top of the case, and I was looking all around because I thought I had lost 3 or 4 filters, ND filters, and I didn't. They were in there. This is hard case. It goes right on your belt. You can get it on Amazon or something like that. It's cheap, and it holds 5 or 6 filters. So if you're a filter user, I definitely suggest getting something good like this, and not those flop over ones that fold together like that you can easily lose those out of pants pockets. So you don't need to have unnecessary. That will ruin your day or your week if you lose $200 of filters.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was a blast. I'd love to talk for another 5 hours.
Well, we can do another episode. A lot of topics came up that we could follow up, so let's do it.
Well, this is going to be going on for all these mistakes are going to keep on happening. I guarantee that.
We'll have a whole new batch of mistakes. All right, thanks.
Thanks again. Thank you, everyone.